Alrighty, welcome to the People of Web3 podcast, episode numero uno, number one. I think that's how you say it. We're your hosts, Blaine, which is me, and Frank over there. And today we have Carmilla joining us, our friend from Bali. She's an interdisciplinary creative NFT artist and also one of the co-founders of NFT BC. So thanks for joining us, friend.
Thanks for having me.
So
honored to be your first guest.
Yes, very special, very special. Start of something cool, hopefully.
Is this would this be considered episode 0 or episode 1?
I mean, if we're going with the crypto theme, it could be the Genesis episode.
Oh,
Oh,
true. I like that.
Oh,
yeah. Maybe, okay,
I like that. Yeah.
So numero Genesis episode. So yeah, maybe start us off. Tell us a bit about who you are, what you do, your background as a designer, creative artist, all that sort of stuff.
Sure. So I was formally trained as an industrial designer, and I was working in that field for a couple of years, focusing mainly in sculpture and furniture. And during the winter of COVID 2021, at the beginning of the year, I came across NFTs just from artists that I was following on Instagram. They started talking about NFTs, especially the digital artists. And I was really curious about it. And I kind of just needed a hobby, like something to distract myself through that like kind of dark time. So I dove into the rabbit hole really quickly and started just immersing myself in the NFT space and joining like Clubhouse rooms and getting a new Twitter account and doing all the things that you do. But I did like take my time before I minted something. I wanted to like just observe the space for a little bit before actually minting my artwork. And I went through a bit of like a style evolution because I wanted to make sure that when I started minting artwork, that it was something that I wanted to be permanent on the blockchain. So I kind of developed almost like a new art style because of NFTs, which was also cool.
Interesting.
I had never really made 3D artwork before, but through my work in industrial design, I was familiar with 3D software. So I was using that same software to create my first pieces. And then from there, I just started exploring other areas of Web3. I started working with some NFT projects on like a consulting basis and throwing events. So I threw the first little meetup in Vancouver in November 2021, and that is what spun into NFT BC, which I am a co-founder of. I think I covered all the things.
Awesome.
Now I'm doing a little bit of everything. Still focusing on my art, doing a little bit more commission work. Just like existing in the space has really benefited my art career.
Okay, so I want to dive into the art styles that you have created for Web3, something I'm kind of working on as well. How did you create this new style? Was there any inspiration that you took off? Was it through just your emotions that you were going through during the pandemic? Can you tell us a little bit more about how you developed that new style?
Yeah. Well, when I started doing like 3D art, I had mainly been using the 3D software to design furniture, and I was working for like a furniture maker. So often I would be creating environments for the furniture to be presented in as like concepts. So I actually really enjoyed creating the environment, sometimes more than the furniture or sculpture itself. And so that's kind of like, I just want to continue that, creating like these cool immersive environments. And I was really inspired by some of the artists who I'd been following on Instagram for a long time who were doing 3D art. But I guess the reason why I hadn't pursued 3D art seriously before NFTs was because I didn't see an outlet for it. I didn't see like a career path as a 3D artist. And so I had been admiring all these 3D artists' work, but didn't like pursue it until NFTs. And when I did, it just made sense for me to like take inspiration from people like Blake Catherine and Paul Valinsky and these like more architecturally focused artists.
There's a couple of interesting things you said there. One of the last things you said around before NFTs, you didn't necessarily see a path or like a path as an artist or whatever where you could kind of monetize or kind of make a career out of, and maybe the NFT space kind of open up some new opportunities. So that in itself is a pretty cool thing to talk about. But with creators, they tend to have like something that drives what they do. You're saying in 2021 that was a bit of a dark time, and often kind of dark times can spawn these kind of interesting ideas. What are some of those drivers for you from like a creative perspective? Like at what state are you the most creative? Are you when you're happy, when you're free, or does it come from many different sources?
Yeah, that is a really good question. I think it does come from many different sources, and I often will create work that's based on what I'm feeling at the moment. So my first collection, it was just a 5-piece small collection that I dropped on Foundation. I based the entire thing around what my values would be if I were to start like a commune, basically.
Okay.
So
How do we join?
I think, yeah, like the 5 pillars were um, democracy, compassion. Oh my God, it's been a while. I don't remember all of them,
Oh,
but like
we can.
awakening was one of
Yeah.
them. But yeah, the concept behind that was just kind of channeling my art as a way to communicate what I would envision as a better world, a better society. And so, yeah, I think sometimes the ideas and like meanings that I have behind my work are quite abstract, but it does come from like a place where it's like the things that I'm thinking about at the time that I'm making the piece. And
Interesting.
I think it just like translates into the work, whether I'm conscious of it or not. But yeah, I always try to like attach some meaning, like some writing along with the work. And I think like that's part of my process is the writing in addition to the visuals.
Interesting. So the writing, to kind of like elaborate, expand a bit more on so writing as in literally writing about what you've created. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. My descriptions are often like a little bit poetic and talk more about like why I titled a piece the way that I did, or like kind of explaining the meaning of different like symbols or
Yeah.
objects that are in the
That's cool.
space.
That's cool. I like how
Cool.
just real quick on that one there. So that because your work's quite abstract, like it's well, at least the stuff that I've seen in the NFT space and stuff like that. There's this abstract element, but that's grounded in something that is real in IRL, as Frank would say. These values in the real world. This abstract thing is grounded in these values that you think are important, like the democracy, all these different things that you said. So that's kind of cool. Like even you look at something, you're like, what the heck does that mean? And then you're like, that's actually grounded in something that's actually relevant for everyone. So that's pretty cool. Sorry, Frank, I cut you off.
No. Okay, so Carmilla, I know that you are the co-founder of NFT BC, which I just went to your conference last weekend. Also, thank you for inviting me to speak there, and also hosting a side event.
Yeah,
Can you
my
tell
pleasure.
us? Yeah, it was so fun, and the music and all the artists, and you feature so many local artists and creating that community of just artists in Web3 and also artists who are not yet in Web3. They're curious. They come and they learn from other artists who have done it, and meeting other people to build a support system. And yeah, it's amazing. I'm excited to see where NFT BC would lead to. So hopping onto that, what's your Web3 journey? Do you see yourself in right now? And also kind of what's your vision? What are you building towards in the future, maybe the next year at least?
Yeah. I'm kind of riding the wave of Web3. I think you kind of have to be adaptable and flexible to move as the space evolves and grows. And I think the event this year was a good example of that. This was our second event. The first one was on May 1st, 2022, so exactly a year prior. And that event was completely different from this year. That event was like very much party degen vibes. It was a lot simpler. It was just like 600 people crammed into a theater
Oh, wow.
with a couple panels and a DJ, and we were showing art on the big screen. It was just like a completely different vibe from this year, whereas this was more about having these like very intentional, like serious but not too serious conversations about the technology and ways that artists are leveraging it to share their work and like elevate their careers, and creating more space for like interactivity and workshops and onboarding opportunities. So this year was like more about bringing the community together that like already exists and intentionally like sharing ourselves as a group that has good intentions within the NFT space within Web3. Whereas last year was just a party, celebrating like how things are going. So I think for myself, I definitely want to have more time to focus on my personal artwork. I'm working on a new collection of 7 pieces. I just got accepted to Avalanche's artist residency, so that's going to allow me to like spend a little more time focusing on that. I haven't even announced it on Twitter or anything yet, so it's
Congrats. Wow.
alpha.
Alpha.
Thank you.
Dropping
Yeah.
alpha in our podcast. People Web3 podcast.
Funny. But
That's
yeah,
great.
I think like we do need to like start thinking about what NFT BC is going to look like next year as well. But we're going to take some time to like recoup and think about like what we did really successfully and what could be changed in the future. Like I think from that outside, it probably looked like a really smoothly run event.
Yes.
Hopefully,
Yes.
yeah,
It did.
but like on the back end, there was a lot of stress on my end.
Of course.
And so I need to like create a system that makes that process more sustainable for myself and for my team, so that we can continue doing it without burning out. Yeah, and
Okay.
then yeah,
I'll jump in now before we continue. I think last year, as you mentioned, 600, I didn't know it was that big, but parties, music, NFT artist displays, I think we can pretty much imagine that. But this year, I really like how you focus on artists and also not just visual art. Also, you have professional musicians in the space who are experienced coming into sharing insights as a musician creating NFTs and creating communities. I think that was very insightful. But not just that, but your workshops and the networking sessions that you have, I think those were all really well thought out because they were just so valuable for people who attended. And I was there, right? So I keep hearing people walking around. They were saying, "Oh, I wish I could go to that event, but now I have to like choose between these 3." And you have like 4 floors at this co-working space, beautiful venue, a lot of events going on at the same time. Yeah, I just think there was so much value. I was only able to attend the speed networking session, which was very fun. You can maybe share a little bit about how the idea came out.
yeah.
And then also the Manifold by Richard, the Manifold Workshop. It's so practical. You have a room full of artists who either have already minted maybe elsewhere. You have artists who haven't minted yet, me included, who is now consider using Manifold, watching how easy it is and how much control you have over your smart contract. It's just very practical, I would say, value for artists in Web3. So congrats to that, like amazing. I
Yeah,
would love
thank you.
love for you to share a little bit about the few key events that you have and why did you decided to include those and how did they actually work out? Did they kind of align to your vision or what was the feedback from the community?
Yeah, well, the reason why we structured it the way that we did was because the venue space what became available to us, and I mean, it was a really beautiful space, and they were extremely generous in helping us facilitate the event. So we wanted to take advantage of everything that they were offering, and I think it was like 4 rooms on, yeah, 3 floors plus the open like forum space on the main floor. And so we just wanted to fill it to the brim with activities and things for people to do. Um, so yeah, I think it all came about gradually. Like at the beginning, I don't think that I had this like cohesive idea of what it would look like in the end. I think it just kind of like evolved as people reached out saying that they wanted to contribute somehow. I definitely wanted to do workshops from the start. Um, and like the fireside chats came about because we had limited opportunities for the panels on the first night because no one wants to sit through like 8 hours of panels. So I was like, we should just split it up and then people can decide where they want to be. And I know that networking is like the primary reason why we go to these things. We want to meet other people who are like-minded and building with opportunities to collaborate. So the speed networking idea came about in kind of a fun way because we also want it to be like speed dating just as like a
Mm-hmm.
fun little twist. So we we were like kind of going back and forth on like how hard to push the dating thing. And that's
Yeah, the
also
rose petals on all over the tables.
yeah. And like I don't know, I've been like dating people in Web3 as long as I've been a part of it. So I was just like it's kind of a natural fit. Like this is what people are doing anyway. Anyway, so yeah, we ended up calling it speed networking. So we put candles and rose petals all over the tables. And then
That's
we had this
hilarious.
cool collaboration with NFT Seattle. So Mark came up and ran that activation throughout the day, helping facilitate conversation with like conversation cards. Um, yeah. So that one was really fun, and I wish that I had actually participated, but I was busy running around all day. And
Yeah,
then, yeah, they were just
missed
like
out.
so. I know there were so many artists who were keen to contribute, and we knew that we wanted to have like an art showcase. And so in the submission form to show work at NFT BC, I also added a line saying like, do you have any creative ideas to get involved in other ways with the event? And there were so many submissions that were like really high quality work and also like very experienced artists who had led workshops and things like that. So yeah, I just wanted to like involve as much of the community as possible in the building process for the event and like really let other parties like take ownership of the event as well. And I think that's something that we did do well. Like that's such an easy way to get people excited about the event as well is to like have them directly like taking ownership of something, of some piece of it. And then they
Wow,
are like spreading the word to their network and stuff like that. So
for sure.
yeah,
Amazing. And there are so many events that we haven't even mentioned. You have the art auction with physical art, NFT art. You have a huge kind of blank canvas of an art piece by Mac. Jones, and then you allowed people to painted
Yeah,
throughout
pick my number.
the weekend. That was fun. I did that too. You had like photo booths. You have a lot of things going on.
It was a
FOMO.
lot.
Yeah.
I'll be
Yeah.
there for the next one.
Yes,
Cool.
please do. That'd
I'll
be
be back
sick.
too. I'll be back.
Okay. Give me like a couple months before I need to start planning it.
On the planning
But
it, for the future NFT BC, what do you see that looking like now that you've got, I guess, experience under your belt, running events like this? What do you hope the next ones would be, and what learnings do you think you'll take away from your experience and apply in the next one?
yeah, I mean, I learned so much through this one. When I started, like, I had no event planning experience. Like when I threw the first one last year, I learned a lot from that event as well. And then this year, it's just like I keep learning so much about how events work. Um, but I think the main thing that I feel we could have done better is the messaging around the event. Like that just took a lower priority because we had so many logistical things to organize, that like some of our um, marketing messaging around what was happening at the event could have been better. Um, and yeah, there's some like really simple things that you can do to make people happy and make people stick around, like offering food and drink. And at the venue, there were like some challenges around that. But I think that was something that stood out to us this year for sure, was that if you're asking people to like stick around during the dinner hour, then you gotta feed them too. Stuff like
And
that. And yeah, I think just like starting planning early and understanding how much work it is. But for next
okay,
year, we're gonna like simplify a little bit. I
Simplify it
think
a
it's
bit.
gonna be something in
simplify.
between the first year and the second year because
Oh,
there is just
okay.
a lot of moving parts this year. And yeah.
How many people came actually this year, like total?
We didn't count. We didn't have like some counting at the door, but we sold out the first night, which was 175 people, and then the second day, I think we ended up selling like
That's
almost
way
300
more.
tickets.
Yeah,
Yeah,
About 420.
something like that.
It's kind of around that number.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I guess if
Okay,
you
yeah.
like add the 2 days,
Yeah, if you have the
something
2
like that.
days. Yeah. Okay,
And
420,
that's during this bear market too. Like that's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it's a different vibe for sure. And I think we anticipated it being smaller. We weren't trying to go
Yeah.
for the same like huge party vibe. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Cool. Okay, so kind of end the meetup, the events part, event organizing. What would 3 tips be for you to people, listeners, who are planning to organize small IRL meetups or maybe even conferences at their city? If you can give 3 practical tips, what would they be?
For smaller meetups, I would say just do it. Like when I threw the first
Just do it.
just do it.
Do
When I
it.
threw the first meetup in Vancouver in 2021, I was in this Discord channel, and there was it was like a Canada Discord started by Richard, but there was a Vancouver channel, and everyone in there was like, when are we gonna have meetup? When are we gonna have meetup? And no one was like stepping up to organize it. So that's why I threw the first one, and I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna do it myself. And yeah, like I think that just like putting my name out there as like a leader with events in Vancouver led to so many more opportunities. So yeah, like whatever hesitations you might have, like, it doesn't hurt to try and like see what happens. And you're just gonna, like, the worst case scenario is that you only have a couple of people show up, but then you can have more intimate conversations with those people. And then they're gonna like tell their friends about how nice it was to connect, and that just means the next one is gonna be twice as big or 4 times bigger or whatever. So
I agree.
yeah.
Like small meetups, like don't. A lot of people, I think they feel like, oh, if I do a meetup, if I do an event, it has to have a lot of attendees. But I would say, even meetups, like the first ones that I've done, like 4 people, you actually really get to know them. And then, as you mentioned, like afterwards, if they had a good time, if you did a good job, then they will spread the word. And then next time when you ask again, there will be a little bit more people, and then you slowly build onto it. So, okay, so that's for small meetups. How about
Yeah.
for a large conference? So for people who have done meetups, who are maybe organizers of certain communities or have connections, and they want to do something a bit larger, 200 people, 400 people, 600 like yours, what would be that one main tip for them?
I would say to involve as many existing communities as possible, like really give them a slice of the event for them to take ownership over. And like that will give them the incentive to share with their community and, um, like obviously curate it as well. Like we didn't say yes to everybody who wanted to be involved. Like we had to make sure that everyone's values were aligned, etc. But I think it just, I don't know, that is like what community building is like letting the people dictate what the event looks like, or, it's like, who are you building it for if you're just like making all the decisions yourself? Like you need to involve everybody in that process in order to make sure that everyone is happy and is like getting what they want out of the event. So yeah. And I think that's just kind of like a smart thing to do to ensure that people show up as well, to just like make sure that people are sharing it, and telling
Okay.
people about it.
Good tip.
Okay. How about, okay, so I would say um, the tip for small meetups is just do it. Start small and have intimate conversations. And then for larger events, conferences, involve as many high quality communities that already exist as possible. Give them control and give them creative, what's that called? Freedom to do what they want to do with their community the way that they do. I like that a lot. How do you deal with the stress, the burnout? Because I know as organizers, a lot of stress happens behind the scenes, and I'm sure for you as well, as you mentioned. How do you deal with that?
Oh man, I don't know if I'm even like a good person to ask that, because I don't think that I have the best coping mechanisms. But I will say I was like pretty burnt out immediately after the event. Like more than I have ever felt before. And what made me feel better was going to another event last night. um
Oh,
yeah, where I mean I wasn't like in charge of organizing that one or anything, and I was just able to go and like talk to people. I don't know if anyone there was actually at NFT BC, but like they all knew about it. And just like being vulnerable with them, and like they understand like the struggles of community building because they are building their community as well. Um, yeah, I think that has been, I don't know, one of the most positive things in it is like feeling like there are people supporting, like as much as there's like weird drama, or you can't please everybody, there's like 10 times more people who are like really grateful for the work as a community builder, and who like see the effort that you put in and understand that it's stressful, etc. So I don't know, I think that's like one of,
that's pretty good. I would
yeah, that's
say
like,
so. It's like finding a support system of group of people who appreciate what you're doing and understands. And the easiest ways, I think, is to find other community builders or event organizers, because we all know the struggle behind the scenes. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so if you're feeling a bit burnt out or something, whatever it is, whether it's community building, is often beneficial to, I guess, connect with people in a similar field because they can relate to what you're doing. And that relationship thing is quite important. It's like, this person knows what I'm feeling. Like, they get it. So that can apply to any niche that you're working in, really. I think general support, any person, even if they're not in your niche, but I think there's something unique when you can kind of get feedback or like, what's the word, like get comfort from someone who's in the same field as you, just because they just get it. And it feels nice when someone gets it. It kind of takes a lot of the weight off your shoulders.
I think that's, a large reason why I'm doing these events in the first place is because I was going through like the struggles of Web3 and trying to break in as an artist in NFTs. And that was something that like regular people in my life couldn't relate to. And so I needed like that connection with other people in Web3 who understood, and like I could use all these weird acronyms and they would understand.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I like it. It's quite similar to my beginning of my journey too, I feel. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On that connection part, then how can people, reach out to you in the Web3 space? What's your handles? Just Twitter.
Yeah. Or Instagram, whatever. I'm on all the things, but Twitter is probably the most Web3 place to reach me. My name, Carmilla, ETC.
We'll drop
there
it
you
somewhere. Description.
Yeah. It's cool how you said this at the start that Twitter, like when you enter Web3, one of the starter kit is, if you haven't already, create a Twitter account. Because I didn't use Twitter before joining crypto Web3.
Same.
I just found it a bit funny because it's a bit of a staple for people working in this space. That's where the communication is happening. Although Blue Sky is a new thing, apparently. So who knows how that's.
I'm not on Blue
Sky.
Sky.
Yeah.
But if anyone has an invite,
Frank just got in.
Oh yeah.
Today, I just got in today.
Nice.
Apparently, it takes 2 weeks to get an invitation code. So my friend told me she can give me one, and then she's been waiting, and 2 weeks later she gave it to me today. So maybe in 2 weeks I'll have another code, and I have to choose between which of you to give.
Oh no.
No.
That's okay. Blue Sky will probably be like an outdated thing by the time this comes out.
As long as it's exclusive, it will remain cool.
Yeah.
But if it goes all right, if it's a similar experience to Twitter, then I'm sure that's obviously what they're aiming for. The challenge would be getting people to migrate over, but decentralized communication is important. Obviously, a different topic, so that's a bit of a wormhole, rabbit hole, that one. But
sure.
Interesting.
Cool.
I think that's pretty much covers.
That's pretty much what we have today.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thanks for having me, your first guest. It's fun.
Thank you.
Oh, tell me more about your podcast.
Oh my gosh, she's being the host now.
Dude, we've got three hosts. Yeah. Okay, maybe you give the spiel, Frank.
Oh, I was gonna give it to you, Blaine.
Well, I think it's kind of like, okay, you go.
The way I talk is I just kind of throw my thoughts out. It's not very articulated.
No, it's like that painter. Who's that painter? Who's that artist?
Bucket of paint.
Jackson Pollock.
Pollock, that's the one. I was gonna say Pollard, but that Pollock.
Close.
Pollock. Yeah.
Okay. So For me, it was because since last year, as I mentioned, I also started doing IRL meetups because I wanted to meet more people in the Web3 space and have more of a real life connection and also with the local communities. But also not too many more people were doing that last year. And so I just said, yeah, fuck it. I'll start doing with a couple of the PFP projects and just finding local holders. The first meetup was like 4 people, and then it's just trying to be consistent. So I guess that would be one tip for me is I do it once a month, so people kind of know it's gonna happen. And if people miss this month, they'll come next month, and slowly just grew from there. And then I kind of group the different communities because they're all so small, like a handful of people each. And then for the past like half a year, I just kind of grouped them all together in one meetup. So we have like 15, 20 people, and everybody kind of was able to meet new friends as well. And then moving on to creating my own artist collective because I wanted to find a group of artists in Web3 who also share some similar values. So for me, it was wildlife conservation, or just people who wants to use their art to contribute to the planet in general. So I couldn't really find that in the projects that I was in because it was also out of my control. They have their own vision, of course. So yeah, I just started my own sort of small and started hosting events. The first one was in Hong Kong, 100 people. And then I just kind of traveled back to back to different cities around Asia and Europe. And then so over the course of like 2 months, been to 6 different countries to host the event. And I met so many awesome people. But I couldn't really kind of group them up in one place to build a community with them. So I was talking to Blaine the other day, and he mentioned why not start a podcast? That way we can dive deeper, first of all, with the people we're interested in learning more about, getting to know them more, but also a way to kind of group up these people where we can connect them between them easier. And it's a lot easier, once we do this podcast, when it's out, I can tell other people, hey, I know this really cool person in Vancouver, Carmilla. And instead of just me sharing about what I know, I can just say, hey, hop onto this podcast, learn more about what she does. And, it's kind of like a directory of awesome Web3 relationships, I guess. Yeah. So
yeah. I think it's also just it's from the kind of the psychological side of things as well. Working, because we all obviously all work in this space, and I think one common denominator is, and this is something I think we all need to work on, is that everyone seems to be that almost on the verge of burnout all the time. Like everyone seems to be working hard all the time, and I mean that's a positive thing in a lot of ways, but at the same time, it also is like quite poisonous. It can be if it's not managed well. And for me, having an outlet where you can just kind of talk to kind of people in the space is cool. It's nice. I did a similar thing when I was involved more in the conservation space. Had a podcast with a couple of friends that were like, this was during COVID. We're like, oh, should we just go? Well, let's just have a chat every week, just talk about stuff. And that was really nice during that time. And so I think from just that psychological perspective, it's just kind of, I think it'll be a nice outlet to have to just talk to cool people in the space. So yeah, it'll be fun to see how it evolves over time, but yeah, we'll see how we go. Episode number Genesis.